right, welcome to part 2 of interior formatting with Adobe InDesign. We have cleaned up our document and we are ready to import it into the template. But before we get started, I'm going to walk you through the template. This is for purchase for $20, like I mentioned in the previous video. It will eventually be for sale on bookdesignwizard.com. For now, you can email me directly, stephanie@jerapublishing.com, and ask to purchase the template. $20 one-time purchase. You can use it over and over and over. The template is already set up for book formatting. I have built-in styles. I have built-in grep styles. I have the page layout set up. The only thing that you'll need to do is set your manuscript to the styles that are in the document, and I'm going to walk you through how to do that. It's a great template. I've spent years perfecting it, and it's just a one-time purchase of $20. Now, you can do this without the template. You'll just have to set up your InDesign document beforehand. You'll have to set up the margins, set up your styles, and you can do that with any document at the beginning. You don't have to have this template. This template is just going to save you time initially. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and open up the template just so you can see it. It's very basic. And when you open up the template, you're always, let's close this down and do that again. What we're going to do is we're going to go, I'll open, I just have it saved on my desktop right now. Now, the InDesign template is going to come in an INDT file, which stands for InDesign template. It's not an InDesign regular file, it's an InDesign template file. And you're never going to overwrite it as long as you always open it up in normal. Now, if you want to tweak, maybe you have your own style and you want to tweak your template, I would save the one that you get from me. I would just save it as a backup somewhere just so you'll always have, and then you can open up the template as an original and then save the template, and it'll update based on whatever changes you've made to it. And sometimes I do this if I want to change the base style that I have in the template, or I found a new grep thing that I want to use, or different reasons to update your template. But for now, we're just going to open up a base copy of it. So if we click on the file and make sure it says normal, it defaults to normal. So as long as you don't change it, you don't need to worry about it. And then we're going to click on open. And what that does is it just creates an untitled document. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. I'm going to save this under my Unwrap My Heart Interior. I'm actually going to overwrite one that I was playing around with yesterday and building this video. So we're just going to save it. Now, when I do formatting for clients, as we mentioned in the first one, it's very important to have a nice naming convention for your files. And for interiors, what I typically do is I name the file the name of the book with an underscore, because I'm old school. If you know, spaces in file names can cause a lot of issues, and spacing in file names, especially for ebooks, can cause a lot of issues. So get out of the habit of using spaces in file names. Always use underscore instead of space. It'll save you a lot of headaches with graphics, with everything, especially when creating ebooks. So I save this as Unwrap My Heart underscore interior draft underscore 01. Anytime I always like to denote whether it's an interior file, whether it's a cover file, whether it's an ebook file, and then whether it's a draft file or a final file, and whether it's 01, or the second round or whatever. So I number them consecutively, and I keep every file. So next time I go into this and work on it, I'll probably save it as draft 02, so I always have the backup of draft 01. So that's just my method for saving files. Okay, so this is the template. Now, it looks pretty basic. We have 5 pages in it, but when we add our book document, it's going to get much longer. One thing to note in InDesign is the layout of InDesign. if you are familiar with InDesign, you don't need to worry about this. If you're new to InDesign, you need to make sure you get comfortable with the setup because it's completely different from Word or any other program. So up here we have the File menu. Down, and this toolbar is movable. It may be in a different location when you first open up InDesign. I like to keep mine docked on the left-hand side, and so these are all the tools that I may eventually need to use. And then the main file that you have open is going to be in this main window here, and if you have multiple files open, there's going to be a tab for each file. And then on this right-hand side, I have all of these little tabs for these submenus, all these different things. Now, this menu here is my custom menu. Yours is not going to appear like this. These are just all of the options that I typically use in book design that I want right here available that I'll need to use, okay? Now, you can customize your own menu based on the different tools that you want to use, and all of these tools can be found somewhere in these file menus up here, okay? So I have this workspace customized to me, and you'll see up here, my name's Stephanie. This is my workspace called Stephanie. You're not going to see that on your end. Instead, you're probably going to see one of these. So there are some presets that you can look at that have different ones, different tool menus available. Advanced, it's not really great. Book, I would not recommend. There is just a lot of junk in here that you're not going to use, even though it does say book. I wouldn't do it. Digital publishing, the same way. It looks a little different. You don't need all of this stuff. Essentials, these are just the basic menus. I wouldn't start with that one. Essentials Classic. Interactive for PDF, I wouldn't worry about that. Printing and proofing, I would start with the typography one, okay, and then build upon this. So you can add everything that you want. Let's say this one does not have, let's see, it doesn't have anything for tables. Now, you probably won't need tables if you're just doing some basic formatting and you don't need table stuff for tables. But I'm just going to show you this just so you know how to add something to your workspace. So I'm going to go add in table styles. And so here are my table styles menu, and I'm actually just going to move it and drop it, and it drops all those choices into this workspace. Then what you do is say new workspace and you name it. Okay, so anytime you may have accidentally pulled the pages panel off here and then closed it and now it's gone, you can go back in and bring it up again, and it will default back to the way it was when it was saved. Okay, so this is a great resource to customize your own workspace and have all the tools at hand that you need for book design. All right, so on to the template. The template is only 5 pages, but within those 5 pages, there's a lot of little built-in things, okay? We have already set up all of these different master pages, okay? And I will get into what master pages are and how to use them in a little bit. So I already have a master page set up that is just a basic page layout of a double page spread in a book. So we have the header up top, and you can either choose, traditionally for novels, your header is going to be author name and book title. So I'm actually going to go ahead and remove the book title on the left-hand side and the chapter title on the right-hand side. And just so I'll have an author name on the left and the book title on the right. Now, something to note, left-hand pages are known as verso pages and right-hand pages are named as recto pages. So if I ever use that within this document, that's what I mean. Left hand is verso, right hand is recto. So for novels, it's always usually author name and book title that's on the header. And then for nonfiction books, we typically have a book title on the left-hand side, verso page, and then on the recto we have chapter title. Now, if you did purchase the template, note that the template I have set up is mainly for novels. If you are interested in a lengthier template, if you plan on doing nonfiction books, I do have a template available that includes table styles, includes more detailed paragraph styles, including bulleted lists, numbered lists, several levels of headings. So if you would like a nonfiction template, just contact me. All right. So also on this page are page numbers, and right now I have the page numbers down at the bottom. But as you notice, I cannot come down here and select this this page number like I can select the page header. Well, that's because if we look on the Pages panel over here, you'll see a D. Okay, and what that means is that this particular master page uses the master page D, which is right here, as a base. Okay, so if we click on D, we'll see that we have page numbers here, and they're selectable, and so we could go in and tweak the style. We can make it left aligned, we can make it center, whatever we want to do. Okay. All right, so I'm going to undo that for now because I'm going to show you something else. All right, so if you look and notice at my other pages within this template, quite 4 of them actually use this D as a base. So on this chapter title page, which is exactly what you would think it is, this is what our page is going to look like when we assign the chapter title page, and this is generally how a chapter title starts out. So this would be chapter 1, so it's going to set lower on the page, and then we have the page number at the bottom. All right, and then if we look at the next one that uses D, it's the same thing. It's a little lower. Now this one's called chapter no ornament. You may never need this, but this is for those pages that you still want numbered, but you don't want to include any decoration, any decorative elements that you may have on the chapter title pages. This is what this particular master page is for. And then lastly, we have one for header other titles. And this is primarily used for nonfiction books where we want the book title on the left-hand page and then the other title on the right-hand page. So you don't need to worry about this unless you're doing nonfiction books. So you can actually delete this from your template if you want. All right, so master pages are great in that, and this is where doing book design varies greatly in Word from InDesign, is that we utilize these master pages. And if we look down here in the Pages panel, this is all 5 pages of our document, and you'll see these little letters on each page, and that means that on this page right here, we have the master page F assigned to this page. All right, so F, if we look at F is just the text frame starts lower on the page and there are no page numbers. So you'll see title, no ornament, or page number. Okay, so anything that's assigned to an F, it starts lower on the page and there's no page number. All right, C, which is right here, and then this page right here, C is just a blank page. There's nothing special about it. Just a complete and total blank page. Whereas B is our chapter title page, and when we get into the design part, we are actually going to be putting some graphical elements on this, and that then it'll make sense to as why we have these different title pages set up. Okay. All right, so now that you understand a little bit about all the master pages that are built within this particular template, we are going to move on to paragraph styles. Now, the bulk of this template is paragraph styles. I've already done the setup for you. It makes it so much easier with starting the template because you already have all of these paragraph styles set up. Now, where it takes some practice is learning what each one is, and if you change one, how does it affect changes to the other. So one thing I definitely recommend if you're not familiar with styles is look for a tutorial on using InDesign styles. Styles are essential to building a document. So don't ever do a document without using styles. You will hate yourself later. So if you learn anything from me, just learn this. Styles are important. Now, the great thing is I've already saved you a lot of time in building these styles, okay? So the basic style in this document, and the one that you need to worry most about, is this chapter text file. We are going to assign everything in your Word document. The bulk of it is going to be this chapter text file. Now you can customize, and when we get to the design portion of this, you can change the font, you can change the size, and we're going to talk about the leading a little bit later, but changing this leading here is not going to change the leading in the document the way you want it, because I'll get into this a little bit later, but I have this set up to use baseline grids. So instead of the leading, the document's going to pay attention to the baseline grid, and it's going to ignore the leading somewhat. So because I have everything aligned to a grid, this is going to be the most difficult thing to understand, because this is something that all the other programs that you use, Word, Vellum, all of these, none of these are going to set up your document to the grid. And if you don't know what I'm talking about just yet, that's okay. I will get into it, because it is kind of a complex little subject. All right, so in looking at this base style of chapter text, you can tell I have it set up to Garamond 11 point. There are some... it's set to left justify. I have a first line indent of 0.25 inches. Don't have any tabs set up. There's no paragraph rules, paragraph borders, paragraph shading. I do have some keep options set up. This is just a basic way of formatting paragraphs in books, is that you always want 2 lines at the bottom of a page and 2 lines at the top of the page. So I do have some keep options set up, so you never have to worry about like the widows and orphans and runts and things like that in this document. All right, next thing is hyphenation. This is what I like to use for hyphenation. So I have the hyphenation set up already. InDesign is not going to have this automatically when you create your own template. You'll have to customize it. So my hyphenation settings is the word has to be at least 6 letters long. Only hyphenate after the first 3 letters and before the last 3 letters. I do not want 2 hyphens in a row. You know, a line that ends in a hyphenation and the next line ends in the hyphenation. I do not want that. So we have a hyphenation limit. We set a hyphenation zone, and then you can decide whether you want better spacing or fewer hyphens. So I have them in the middle. You can also tell it not to hyphenate capitalized words, which I do not allow. I do not allow hyphenate across a column. So that means that the last word on a page is not going to hyphenate. And then again, hyphenate last word. All right, justification. This is not the default in InDesign. I have tweaked my own justification settings, and this is really talking about the fully justify settings. Okay, so you can tell InDesign how much space you want to put in between letters and words and glyphs. So these numbers are ones that I have tweaked throughout the years to produce the best results. Now, in some cases, you may need to justify these justification settings depending on the font. So if something looks a little too spaced out, or if it's not spaced out enough throughout your document, you may want to go in and change these justification settings. But these are the best numbers I've discovered in doing book design in all my years. So that's why I have the template set up with these particular particular numbers. All right, the next thing, we'll worry about drop caps and nested styles a little bit later when we look at the first pair of drop cap. And then the next thing we're going to look at is grep styles. Now, I have two grep styles built into this document. And grep is what is known as regular expressions. It's kind of like a code, a find and replace code. I am not a coder. I don't want to code. I don't want to learn to code. I know just enough to get through. I know HTML and I know grep a little bit. But if code makes you go crazy like it does me sometimes, don't worry about it. I have these built in and I'm going to show you what they are. But this first one, it'll say apply style, and the styles are actually going to, it's actually assigning a character style. So there's two main styles. There's paragraph styles and there's character styles. So paragraph style is where it runs that one style on a whole entire paragraph. So from the beginning to a paragraph mark. Okay, it's going to put that style on. Whereas a character style is on an individual word or an individual character. Okay, so when we set up grep styles, we are going to apply them using a character style. So I have a no break character style set up. And what this does, what this particular grep style does, it prevents a runt. And a runt is where you have a very short word at the end of a paragraph. So let's say your paragraph ends in fun, period. Well, that's only 4 characters, and in book design, that looks pretty bad. So what this particular grep style does is that at the end of a paragraph, we want at least 10 characters, and apply this no break feature to those 10 characters. So what that means is that fun is no longer going to be on a line by itself. It's going to take the word before it, have fun, let's say. So have space fun, period. Well, that's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's 9 characters. It's still would be considered a runt unless I changed this number to 9 or 7. So it would automatically bring the next word down to that line. So let's say to have fun. Then we have 10 characters or more, and then it will prevent that runt from happening. So if you find that in using this that you don't want quite such a long last line, you want less than 10 characters, sometimes I will adjust this down to 7, but I wouldn't adjust it down much more than that because you do want somewhat a nice length at the end of the line. All right, now this one right here I'm not really going to talk much about. You can actually delete this one. This is just really preventing already hyphenated words from being hyphenated. And in some cases, if you're like me and a writer that uses long strings to long hyphenated strings, this can cause issues sometimes, but these are some of the manual processes that you'll need to take in book design. So this particular one is not as important, so I'm not going to spend that much more time on it. All right, then as far as anything else in the style menu, there's really nothing else that you need to worry about for chapter text. Okay, now what is important to know is all of these other styles that we have in this document are all based on the chapter text style. So anytime you want to make changes within your document, let's say, hey, I don't want to use Garamond as the base font. I want to use Warnock Pro. Always make the change in the chapter text file, and then that way, if we say we want to use Warnock Pro size 12, it will automatically update all of these other styles because that particular style is based on chapter text. Okay, so first para, it's now Warnock Pro size 12. Because if we look at the general tab, it's based on chapter text, okay? So this is one of those time-consuming things that I have already done in this template that's going to save you a lot of time moving forward because I have all of these styles pre-set up for you. The first several ones are just chapter text. Sometimes we need we need space above the chapter text. Sometimes we need a first para, and what first para means is that there is no indentation. Sometimes we need first para space above, first para drop cap. I'll show you what that does when we actually start formatting the document. First para drop cap 2, I'll also show you what that is, and then we have centered space above. Now, you may not use all of these. You may only use chapter text or first para, but they're here for you when you need them. All right, now under the headings folder, I have some pre-designed styles set up. We have chapter number, chapter title, part number, part title, other titles. And then under miscellaneous, you'll see some random things under there, which I will get into a little bit later. And a lot of these you may never use. We have some block quote styles set up. We have some title page styles set up, and then we have some TOC things set up for the table of contents. All right, now going back to our template, the way it comes, you'll notice that on this first page, we have basically in the template as a whole, there are 3 parts to this template. The first part is the title page, and if you notice this line here, this is denoting that there's a text thread. So what a text thread is means that this particular page continues on to this page. So if we were to come in here and start typing, it would automatically go to this page. And if you do not see this particular line when you select things, that means that you're not viewing text threads. So you can come into, oh my goodness, sometimes we just, all right, yeah, sorry. Go into view extras and show text threads. And the shortcut for that is Control-Alt-Y. So you can turn that on and off. I always show mine just because I want to see, what text frames are linked together. All right, so we are going to select the text frame on this page, and you'll note there is no line that continues from here to this page right here. So this page ends right here. So basically, the way to look at this is a mini document within this document. And if we were to go in and add something in, let's say we wanted to add a dedication, I am going to just start typing. What I did is I went down to the bottom of this copyright page and I hit enter, and then I just typed in, let's say, for Mickey Mouse, and let's say that's our dedication. Okay, that automatically created a new page within this text frame. And then it pushed our contents page to the next recto page, okay? So we can continue to add more information to this front matter part. Maybe you want a newsletter sign up. Newsletter information goes here. And maybe you want another page. So you can continue to build all the front matter parts within this. So I'm actually going to delete these out because I do not want a dedication for the ARC. All right, so that's the first part of the document. All your front matter should be in this first part of the document. Then next, we are going to have the table of contents page. Now, if you're just doing this for print, you do not need a table of contents page. If you are doing this for an ebook, keep the contents page in. So for now, we're going to leave it in because we are turning this into an ebook, so I want to keep it. I want to keep this table of contents page, but it's not going to be updated until the very end once we get all our chapter titles in, okay? All right, so the next part of the document, and now backing up a little bit, this table of contents page is already set up, so you do not have to do much work to it. So in the end, all we're going to do is come here, select the table of contents page, and we're going to say update table of contents, and it's going to build the table of contents page based on how I have it set up. So if you come in here to the table of contents page, you can see that I already have all of these set up as I already have the table of contents page built. Okay, so we're going to close that out. Close that out. We don't need to know that right now. All right, now the next part of this template is page 1. You'll see a page number here. And this is actually where we're going to start and place the Word document that we have. But we're not going to do that just, actually, yeah, we're going to go ahead and do that. And then we'll backtrack to the front matter page. So what I'm going to do now, there are 2 ways to get text into InDesign. You can do, a copy paste. Do not do copy paste. It actually kind of slows down the document and can be quite cumbersome. And the best way to get a file into InDesign is use this command in InDesign called place. All right, so in order to use place, you need to tell InDesign where to place it. So we're going to actually select this page frame on page 1, and we can double click into it, and now we're in the page frame. Or we can click on the little text tool and then click on it here, and that'll also get us in this particular page frame as well. So now we're going to place that document that we built in Word. We're going to close it because you'll have to have the document closed because it's not going to place one that's actually open. All right, so the command for placing is Control D. Okay, and what that's going to do, it's going to say place, and you're just going to find where the document's at. All right, now if you forget Control D, you can go to File, Place, and it brings up the same thing. Now, if you do not have your text frame selected, you can still do Place and find the document. And what's going to result is you're going to get this little cursor. Once it loads, you're going to get this. And so all the text is in this little thing. And if I put it here, it's going to fill this here. Well, that's not on the text frame that I want here. And then you're going to see that it ends here, and you're going to have a little red plus sign, which means that there's additional text within this text frame. And we don't want that. We want the text frame to go on our master text frame. Now, this is one of the things that may take you a little bit to grasp. You always want it to go into your master text frame because you're always going to be able to apply styles to that page, and it's going to move around the master text frame. Because if we look into all of these templates, we'll notice that this story is the master's primary text flow. If we go to the chapter title page, you'll notice this is the story's primary text flow. So we want this in the primary text flow. And if we just place it randomly like I did, it's not going to be in the primary text flow. So we're actually going to delete this out. And I'm going to show you that again. We can do here using the double clicking into this master text frame, or using the text tool to click in this master text frame, and you'll be able to tell that you're in the master text frame. And then we're going to place that clean, unwrap my heart. And I'll show you what it does here. If you remember, when we just placed it willy-nilly on the main screen, we had that little red plus sign, and we didn't have any additional pages in. By placing it in the master text frame, because I already have in this document set up to create additional pages until the end of the story, I use this smart text reflow that's set up in this document already. It went ahead and created all the pages until the very end. So it created 231 pages within this document because that's based on how long the document is, okay? So if we didn't place it in the master text frame within this template, we would have to tell it to manually flow from page to page, which can be a little bit cumbersome unless you have that smart reflow document on. You don't have to think about that because I already set the document up that way. All right, so we're going to undo this. And if you forget to select the text frame and place your document in, you can still, when you have it on your cursor like this, you can still make it go in that primary text frame. You just don't place it here, place it right over here. And if you'll notice, we have this kind of line. See the little arrow? You'll see the kind of angled corner there. If we go into this text frame, it changes. So that means that we can drop it here and it's going to fill into that text frame. Okay, and that did not work properly. So we're going to try it again. All right, now that's what we want. We want no brackets around it. We don't want the corners. We want everything. Now it should drop into that master text frame. It still didn't. So don't do it that way. As we can see, it can be a pain. Come in here with your text tool, and there is a way to get it to work. I'm just not going to waste time. Sometimes InDesign can be a little quirky and cause you issues, so we're just going to do it the right way. The way you should get in the habit of doing it, okay? All right, now we're frozen. So hold on just a minute, I'll be right back. All right, I am back. We just had a little hiccup. Sometimes InDesign behaves badly, but the great thing is that InDesign auto saves, and so if it crashes, it typically will bring the document back up the way you had it last when you worked on it. Okay, so now we're going to place it the right way. So, select your text frame, double click on it, do Control D or File Place, Control D, and choose that clean document that you have. Now, I never do this, and you do not have to do this because I'm going to show you another way to do it, but you can actually show the import options and bring up this import options menu, and you can tell it what you want to bring in out of this document. So if there is a table of contents set up in the document that you're bringing in, you can tell it to bring that in. If there are any index markers, you can tell it to bring in those. If there's footnotes and endnotes, these are mainly for complex nonfiction books, and your everyday fiction book will not have these. So I typically just avoid this menu because I map my styles a different way than here, but you can get in the habit of looking at this and seeing all the different options. Definitely always use typographer quotes. You always want to keep the styles and formatting in the Word document. So never select this one, because if you do this, all your bold, all your italics, all of that is going to go away. And you want to keep that in. You want to be able to see that. So always make sure it's set to preserve styles. You want it to preserve page breaks. If you have graphics within your document, you want it to bring those in. We don't want the track changes in there. We don't want it to convert bullets and numbers to text. And we don't want it to import any unused styles. Then down here, you can tell it to import the styles automatically, and what it's going to do there is it's going to bring in the styles that Word has assigned, or you can use this custom style import and map the styles. So if you know your heading 2 styles are what the chapter title is, and if you know that normal text actually needs to be assigned as chapter text, you can do that. Now, like I said, I skip this menu. I actually go in the styles menu and delete all the word styles that are brought in and map them myself to the style I want them in the InDesign document. So we're just going to cancel this, and we're going to cancel this and not worry about doing that. So we're going to go back in and place the document in, and I'm going to uncheck that show import options because I'm not going to worry about it right now. All right. Click on open, and it's going to take a little bit of time depending on how complex your document is, and it's going to automatically reflow the document because we put it in the master text frame. And now we went from having 5 pages all the way down to 251. Now, hold your horses. Right now, right after you place your document, there is one important step that you must do. Otherwise, you'll want to shoot yourself because InDesign and Word look at character styles a little bit differently. So if we were to go in and start cleaning up this document, anywhere where I have italics, it's going to go away. Anywhere where I may have used bold, anywhere where I may have a subscript, it's going to go away. And we do not want these. I do not want to have to go through my entire InDesign document and set these to an italic style, okay? There is a great script that you will use every time, no matter what document, no matter what kind of document you have, you will use this script. So you must get this script and download it. And it is a prep text script. All right, if you're not sure where your script panel is, and you'll notice that I have built mine in my workspace, you go to Windows, Utilities, and Scripts, and the shortcut to that is Control Alt F11. But it's always easier to remember Windows, Utilities, Scripts, and then if you build your own custom space here, make sure you drop scripts in that because it is something that you are going to use every time. All right, now the scripts panel, InDesign comes with many different scripts. It has some Visual Basic scripts as well as JavaScripts. And we'll show you one script that I use from all the ones that InDesign provides. I don't always use it, but it is a good little script. You can get in the habit of using it. I just don't have a habit of using it. And then you can create your own scripts if you are good with JavaScripts, or you can find some scripts online that are meant to be time savers that maybe do certain things that InDesign doesn't do, and these scripts allow those things to happen. You get to save them under user. So you will need to find this JavaScript prep text. Oops, I didn't mean to run it, but we did run it. So it's okay. We know that I have already ran it. But you need to find this preptext.jsx. It's from Zhongware. And to find it, what we're going to do is we're just going to go to Google, and we're just going to do a search for it. And you can go to InDesign Secrets. This is actually going to show you. InDesign Secrets is a great board. There's actually a Facebook group for InDesign Secrets that's actually ran by the two people who have done the InDesign Secrets podcast for many years, and that's David Blattner and Anne-Marie Concepcion. They have a good Facebook group. I definitely recommend joining it. So if you get stuck, you can actually ask questions, and there's a lot of people, including me, that will be more than happy to help you. So just do the search for prep text JSX. Now, there is another one that they claim is better, this perfect prep text. I've used it in the past, but for my purposes and for what you do, you really just need this prep text JSX, as long as you always do this step first. Whereas the perfect prep text, if you forget it, you can always run it later and it works better than the regular prep text. So we are going to find the prep text JavaScript. Let's see. We'll find it somewhere. I'm just finding the link for it. It's from Zhongware. Hold on just a minute. We're going to pause this so you're not having to sit here and watch me look for this. I'll show you exactly where to find it in just a minute. So hold on just a minute. Okay, so I found the one that we needed. So what I did is I just did a search for preptext.jsx, and it was actually the fourth one I'm sorry, the fifth one on this list where the title is Preserve Local Formatting Script, and it's actually in the Adobe community. So we're going to click on that. And then what you need to do is come down here. It's like the top reply. And it's from Zhang Ware because he's the one that actually wrote the script, and it's on his site. So you'll see his preptext.jsx. So click on this file and save that file in your downloads folder. It's currently in a zip file, and then what you'll need to do is unzip it, so extract the zip file and then open up the folder, and you'll see that preptext.jsx. Now, we need to get this file into the location that Adobe saves all these files at. So you'll need to have it in the right folder for it to display under the users panel. So in order to do that, you can actually tell Adobe InDesign to reveal these in Explorer. So it's going to bring up the Explorer menu, and we know that here it is. It saves all the scripts in this scripts panel. So at this point, what you do is from the zip folder, you copy the file, and then you come over here in that scripts panel folder and you paste it. All right, I already have mine there, so you don't need to worry about it. We don't need to worry about it here, but you'll definitely want to paste that file because you will use this over and over. The great thing is that once you save this in InDesign, no matter how many versions of InDesign there are, it's always going to use the scripts panel, so you're never going to have to redo it again unless you're on a new computer. It's always going to be there, 3 or 4 versions from now. All right, so now that we have this prep text folder, make sure you're in the text frame again, because this particular JavaScript is only going to run it on your selected text frame. So we are going to run it, even though we already did. And what that is going to do is all those instances, if you remember from before, all these italics were highlighted in like a cyan color, and that cyan color means that there is a character override there, and if we clear that character ride, we're going to clear the italics. But now we don't have to worry about it, because what that script did is it searched my entire document, and anywhere where there was a character override of italic, it applied the italic character style. Anywhere where there was a bold override, it applied the bold. And so what that script does is it goes through your entire document, looks for those instances that you have italic, bold, underline, and it converts them into a character style. Because what we're going to do is we're going to assign styles to every paragraph within our document, and it's going to get rid of those, and we don't want that. So we want to run that script first. It's very, very important. All right, so next what we're going to do is we're going to run another script. And this is a script that comes with InDesign, and it is called Find Change by List. I don't know who came up with that, because to me it's not self-explanatory. But what this particular script does is it automatically gets rid of 2 spaces with 1, which we've already done. It gets rid of the space paragraph, which we've already done. So it gets rid of some of the things that we've already done. So if you don't want to do the cleanup in the Word document, you can actually do the cleanup here. But where it goes another step is that it takes your double dashes and it converts them into the proper em dash. So it actually does a lot of different things. All right, now you may say, well, I want to know what it does, because I don't want InDesign to change my document without me knowing what it is. So you can actually open up this text file that's under Find Change by List, where it says Find Change Support, and there is a text file that walks you through everything that this script does. Now, if you're not into code, this may look foreign, but if you look for certain things, it tells you exactly what it does. So It finds all double spaces, replaces with single spaces. It finds all returns followed by a space and replaced with a single return. Again, those are things that we did in the Word document. Find all returns preceded by a space and remove the space. We already did that in the Word document. Find all double tab characters and replaces with single tab characters. We removed all the tab characters in the Word document, so we don't have to do that. And actually, you can modify this script if you did want to use it and not do the cleanup, where it removes all tab characters, period. And then it says find all returns followed by a tab character and replace with a single return. So essentially that's what I do in the Word document. So it takes out those tab characters and just puts in a return. And then it finds all returns preceded by a tab character and removes the tab character. Find all double returns and replace with single returns. We did that in the Word file. Find all space dash space and replace with an N dash. And then find all dash dash and replace it with an M dash. So these are all the things that find change does. So you can save yourself some time in the cleanup process and use this script instead of cleaning up the document in Word, because it essentially does the same thing. Like I said, I am a bit of a control freak and I like to manually look at tabs and things like that. And then in some cases, because this last one is very good, where it replaces all dash dash and puts in an M dash, that is something that I don't do in Word, and I definitely do that in InDesign. So running this script is a great way to make that happen. So if we look here, I'm ending this now dash dash one way, and then his girl dash dash Riley. We're going to run this. We want it to run on the document is fine, and it's going to basically clean up the document again. So we're going to go back to those. It converted that dash dash into an M dash. So now we don't need to worry about doing that ourselves. So another script that's great is that find change by list. Okay. All right. So now what we're going to do is we are just going to go through the document and we are going to apply styles. Okay. And I already have styles set up, so it's going to be quite easy. So for here, this is going to be a chapter title. So what we're going to do is just apply a chapter title. Okay. Now, something to note, that one prep text script that we ran, it saw this as a bold, and I don't have my chapter titles set up as bold. You'll see that the font style is regular, it's not bold, but for some reason this is coming through bold. It's because that particular script that we ran, it assigned the bold to this. I don't want my chapter titles in bold. We're actually going to use a special font for these that we'll worry about in the next part of our little tutorial here. So I am actually going to get rid of that bold, but I'm going to show you how to do that without having to do it manually. All right, so what we're going to do, all of my chapter titles are either Zane or Braley, and I'm going to do a little time-saving tip so I can assign all of those as the chapter title. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do bring up my find menu in InDesign. It's called find change and not find replace like it is in Word, and it always is going to be Control F. All right, so this is the InDesign find menu, and you will notice there's several different things here. Find text, find grep, find glyph, find object. The only ones that you need to worry about are find text and find grep. Don't worry about these until you get into more advanced stuff in InDesign. You may never use them. I've never really used the glyph one, but I do use the object one sometimes. But you're mainly going to be using the text one. And eventually, later on, I'm going to show you how to use the grep one, because we can do a lot of little time-saving searches to find like paragraphs that do not end with a punctuation, and make sure all quotes have an opening and a close where needed. So I'm going to show you some grep searches, so we're going to use the grep search later. But for now, we're just going to stick to the text, because what we want to do is we want to find every instance of Zane with an end of paragraph. Okay, so if on this little @ symbol, you'll be able to select different specialty things. Okay, and we're not going to change anything, so we want it to keep Zane in the paragraph. We're just looking for any instances where we have this. Okay, because I want to tell it to remove the character style that's applied, so it's going to get rid of that bold, and I want to tell it to assign the chapter title style, paragraph style. Okay, so what's going to happen is, let's go to the very beginning of the document, and we're going to do find next. Well, of course it found this one. We're going to tell it to change it, so you'll notice that now the bold is removed. And then we're going to go on to the find the next. Right, here's the second instance of Zane, so we're going to tell it to change, so you'll automatically see that it changed to the chapter title and remove the bold. And I know that I do not have any instances in here where my paragraph ends with Zane unless it is a chapter title. So I know I can actually do a change all. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now, you may want to do them manually, search one by one, especially if you're doing this for a client, because they may have forgot a period. So if a paragraph, let's say this paragraph ended right here with Zane and didn't have a period, it's going to find that. And so if you told it to do a change all, it's going to change this whole entire paragraph to be that chapter title style. So we definitely don't want that. So you can actually get anytime you're running these find and replace, you can do them one at a time instead of doing change all. I just know in this particular document, I do not have any instances where Zane is at the end without a period. Unless it's the chapter title. All right, so now we're going to do a search for Braley, which is our other POV in this book and our other chapter titles. And we're going to do the same thing. We already have it set up where the character style is none and the paragraph style is going to be chapter title. So we're going to do a change all, found 23 instances, and so now all our chapter titles are already set up. Okay. Now, at this point, you may say, well, this is a new chapter. Why? I don't want, it to be on this page. I want it to start on a new page. Well, that's where we would go in and we would edit the chapter title paragraph style. So what we would do is edit chapter title, and that particular thing where you have it set on the next page is under keep options. Okay, so you want to tell it to start on the next page. So if we did that, it automatically, you no longer see Braley here. It's because it's on the next page. You can also, if you want all your chapter titles to start on an odd page, you can tell it to start on the next odd page, or if you only want them on the even page, which is a big no-no because we don't want to have any blank right-hand pages, you can tell it to do an even page. But for this one, I don't want chapter titles to even start on the next page because I'm actually going to add in a chapter number. Okay, so here I am going to type in chapter number, and right now it's assigned the chapter title and it's actually bold. Well, we don't want it to be bold, and we want it to be assigned chapter number, which the style that I have set up for chapter numbers is a little different than the chapter titles. Okay, now let's say I want these auto numbered. Okay, let's change that up a little bit. If we want them auto numbered, we can use the numbered list feature. Now, and that way this would be auto numbered throughout. Now, there is sometimes, if you want them centered, this can get a little wonky and may not be the best way to do it, and you may just want to just type them out. But then sometimes you get in the problem where you have a missing chapter number or a duplicate. A lot of my clients will do that on accident. So if you do set this up as an auto number, and I'll show you how to do that. You'll notice I put in a little space here because it's not going to do an auto number without some sort of character there. So to set up an auto number, we're going to edit the chapter number style. We're going to go down here to bullets and numbering, and we're going to select numbers, okay? And you'll notice that it moved it over. It put a 1 there, but it moved it over. Okay, so we can play around with a couple of different things so that it is centered. And the first thing is down here where it says bullet and number positioning, hit center, and we do not want a tab. Okay, actually we're gonna see if it allows us to zero this out. It may not. I don't know. Okay, nope. All right, this is always a little tricky, so we always have to play around with it. All right, so we want it centered, and then we actually are going to come here to the numbering style. We definitely want it formatted as 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you can tell it to do Roman numerals, uppercase, lowercase, ABC. You can tell it to do many different numbering conventions, but we just want the basic numbers. All right, now this is code. So it's going to say, it's going to put the number, then it's going to put the period, then it's going to put a tab. Well, we don't want that, okay? We don't want the tab, we don't want the period, we just want the number, okay? So as you see how that changed, okay? So if you look at it, it's really not centered. And this is one of those little quirks in using these auto numbers that can be a pain. And there's really no perfect way that I have found to center it. So if anybody knows, I would love to know. But what I'm going to do is actually add chapter before it. And you'll notice that it does do chapter 1. All right. And that's what I want. Now, what I can do, sometimes you can play around with this, but because we have it centered, it's not, we're not going to get it to line up perfectly. So this isn't obviously the best method if you're going to center them. However, for my purpose, I am actually going to have these titles left aligned. So if I have them left aligned, it's not going to matter. And let's do one more thing. We're going to left. So it's not going to matter that it's not centered on the chapter title. Okay, so this is just for auto numbers. And that way when I go to my next chapter title, oops, we missed one somehow. So actually what we're going to do is we're going to do a search. And we are going to search for chapter title. That way I can find them faster. All right, so we don't have anything. Document. Oh, I'm sorry. If anybody noticed my error, I'm not finding anything. I couldn't get it to find next because I'm not giving it any parameters to find. So I have to find format chapter title. I had only had it down here. So now we'll be able to find the next one. All right, so find next. We don't need that one. All right, so here, where did it get rid of Braille? I may have made a mistake. Nope. Oh. Braille. For some reason, it didn't do it properly. I somehow missed a search. So let's go back. So this is a great thing. You get to realize that I make errors too. All right, so it only did the one. All right. So somehow, for some reason, this got changed to another style. So it wasn't finding it. So now we're going to go back in and we're going to say find chapter title. Click on OK, find next, Braille. All right. So I want to add the chapter number. So I'm going to hit the enter key to drop Braille down, and I'm going to change the style for that to chapter number. And you'll see that it automatically built chapter number in. All right, so we're going to go to the next one. We're going to hit enter. We're going to say chapter number. It's going to drop that. Now you'll see that it automatically dropped chapter 3 to the next page, and that's because in my style definitions, I have chapter number to be on the next page, okay? So when you get this template, just know those are some of the wonky things that you're going to have to learn on how this template is. So if you ever want to set up a one-on-one with me to learn the little ins and outs, why does this template do this? I can walk you through it. All right, so what I would do at this point is just continue to go on. I don't want to bore you, so I'm actually going to pause here for a minute, and then we're going to come back, and all this is going to be already done. Okay, so we'll talk to you in a bit. Okay, so now I have gone through the entire document and made sure I have chapter titles set up along with the chapter numbers. Okay, so that's one of the first steps that I do in a document. And you can actually search for those types of things depending on what the chapter titles are actually named. So if the chapter titles are actually named chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, all you have to do is do a search for chapter, and it will find those instances. Now in this document, it's not going to find any, except some that are in the actual manuscript. So because we did have chapter somewhere written in the book. So you want to kind of avoid those. So one way to search, and we're not going to find any in this document, but you may find some in yours. If your chapter titles are chapter 1, 2, 3, you can actually search for that. So chapter, and you'll notice that I clicked on grep. Okay, so this is a quick little tool to use when you're searching for certain things. So if we did chapter 1, well, it's only going to find that one instant of chapter 1. We want it to find any instant where there's a chapter, where it says chapter followed by number and then an end paragraph, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to click on grep, we're going to type in chapter, and we're going to tell it to find a wildcard. So if you click on this little @ symbol, it's going to give you all these little different things that you can add to the grep field to search for. So we're actually going to search for a wildcard of any digit. And then we want to repeat that digit, because if we only have one digit in there, it's only going to find the numbers 1 through 9, or 0 through 9. But we want it to find double digits as well. So we have to repeat that digit 1 or more times, okay? And then we can tell it to search for an end of paragraph. So what it's going to do is it's going to look for a line that says chapter space 1 or more numbers, and then a paragraph mark. Now this document doesn't have any, but if the document that you're working on has that chapter number, it will find them. So you would just click on Find Next, and then you can easily apply the style, whether you want to set it to a chapter number or a chapter title. Okay. Now, if your book has actual titles that don't repeat throughout, you'll just have to find them manually and assign those chapter titles. So sometimes that does take a little bit of time. Now, if you or your client used the styles properly in Word, all your chapter titles may come in as heading 1s or heading 2s or whatever, and you can actually go in. I know for this particular document they were set up as heading 2s. So if you look at your paragraph style, down at the bottom of our paragraph style, all the ones up top, these are all the ones that are predefined in the template you get. And then there are 3 down here at the bottom, normal, heading 2, and heading 4. And they have this little rectangle with an arrow. What that means is that this style was actually imported in from the Word document. So I do know that heading 2s were actually my chapter titles within that Word document. So I can actually come in here and delete heading 2s. All right, so what I'm doing is I am down here, heading 2s, I'm over it with a mouse. I right click and I'm going to say delete style. Okay, All right, so InDesign doesn't automatically delete the style because it tells me that there are heading 2s assigned within my document. Well, I already knew that because those are my chapter titles. So we are going to tell InDesign wherever it finds a heading 2 to delete it, but change it to chapter title. So if your chapter titles are actually set up to something other than normal, like heading 1s, this is a great way to automatically change all of those within the document. Okay, so I did have some in the back. Okay, so the ones I had in the back are some of these extra special chapters that I have in the book. So I'm just going to go in and reapply them and add that chapter number. I'm going to delete out that bold, add in the chapter number. And we didn't find this in the search that I did because it has more than what we were looking for, because it has Zane epilogue and then Braley epilogue, and then the other one was called Sebastian altogether. So that's the reason why I didn't find it. All right, so now that we have all the chapter titles set, the next step we're going to do is we're actually going to assign master pages for the rest of the document. Now this page number 1 right here, it's always going to be assigned this chapter title page, and when we import all of the text, all the pages after that actually had that same master page, which is that B chapter title. We don't want these set to the B chapter title. We actually want these set to the headers, the A headers. So to change master pages, there's a couple ways you can do it. Let's say you can right click, apply master page, tell it to be page A, and click on OK, and it'll update that page to page A. Another way is to drag A down to whatever page you want, and it changes it to A. I'm going to undo that. But if you want to change all of these like we want to do, we want from page 2 all the way to be to the end, to be this A header, what you do is just select page 2 and scroll all the way down to the end, hold the shift key down, and select to the last page. So it's going to select all of those pages from page 2 to page 239. We're going to right click, we're going to apply master to pages, and we're going to tell it to apply the A header. So watch our page count. We're currently at 243. It's going to change because we're adding more lines to the page because we're applying this A header. So now our page count is 203 pages. Okay, and all the document has been applied to the A header page. Now we don't want chapter titles to be on this A header. We do want the B chapter title to be applied, but we're not going to worry about that yet until we get to the design stage. We don't want to set all of the master pages until after we figure out what font we want to use, what font size, what line spacing, everything within the document. We want that to be set before we start applying master pages, because one font change, like if you go from 11 point or 12 point, you may add an additional page and all your master pages are going to be off at that point. We don't want that, so we want to save that step towards the end. Okay. All right, so now that we have these headers applied, you'll notice that, well, we have author name and book title. Well, we don't want author name and book title. There we want the actual author name and book title to be in the header. And you change this in the master page. All right, so if we go to the master page, you'll note that we have author name and we have book title. So you can go in and just type the author name here and the book title here. But this template has an extra time-saving part into it with using text variables. So you actually only have to input the author name once and the book title once, and then wherever that needs to be, within the document, you can use a text variable to define it, okay? And I'm going to quickly walk you through this. I'm not going to tell you how to create them. That's what some of the other tutorials are, but I'm just going to tell you how to use the ones I have set up. So we're going to go to page 1 of our document. This is the title page. So here, if you'll notice in the paragraph styles, this is book title. This is assigned the book title paragraph style. Subtitle, I'm going to delete out because we do not need it. And then we have author name, and that is assigned the paragraph style of author. So here I am going to delete out book title, and I am going to type in our actual book title, okay? And then for author name, I am going to type the authors. Oops. And I want you to notice what happens on these header pages. It automatically brought in Heather Dowell and Victoria Anders, where the author name goes, and then Unwrap My Heart, where the title goes. It's because these are set up as text variables that are defined by the book title style and by the author title style. It's also going to update the table of the copyright page, because I have this as a text variable. Okay, so that's just a little time-saving thing in the template. Okay, so next what we're going to do is we're going to change the styles. Okay, when we imported the manuscript to InDesign, the majority of the text came through as that normal, and we actually want to delete normal and change it to chapter text. Now you can do this by selecting the paragraph, but by putting your cursor anywhere in that paragraph and clicking chapter text like this, and it changes them. Yeah, but you don't want to go through one by one and have to do that. Whoops, wrong one. You don't want to go one by one and have to do that throughout your entire document. So we're actually going to right-click on normal, and we're going to delete the style, and we're going to replace it with chapter text. Now pay attention to what happens, and it automatically changes all that text to be the chapter text. So now everything within the document is set to chapter text, which is what we want it to do. And the great thing about this is that all of these styles, pretty much all of them, are based on this one chapter text style. And so if we look at chapter text, it's currently set to Warnock Pro regular 12-point, 15-point leading, and with a 0.25 first line indent. It's aligned to a grid. We'll talk about the grids in a little bit when we're designing the document. The grid is kind of like very similar to the leading. It works a little differently, but the leading and the grid need to be the same. Okay. Let's see what else. Keep options. I have some keep options set up where the paragraphs, it has to be 2 lines at the bottom or 2 lines at the top. This prevents widows and orphans. I'll also have some special hyphenation set up in the template. Now this is all custom stuff that I've done. These are not the base setup in InDesign. These are just based on my years of experience in book design. That these are the hyphenation settings and the justification settings that I prefer to use for my documents. So I'm giving you kind of my little trade secret with this. And you can adjust these however you want. If you want hyphenations to be after 2 letters, that's fine. You can change all these, but this is a pretty stringent hyphenation settings. I don't allow multiple hyphenations in a row. I don't allow the hyphenation, the end of the page to be hyphenated onto the next page. Those are just little things that I've built in this template so that does not happen. All right, the next thing is justification settings. These are not the default justification settings in InDesign. These are just justification settings that I have played around with throughout the years that produce the best looking justified document. Now, with some fonts, you may want to change these settings because all the fonts are different, and these may need tweaking depending on the font, but this is what I like to use. All right, and then the last thing as far as this particular chapter text style is I have a couple of grep styles set up, and grep styles are basically code. You don't have to know code or anything. This is all grep code. It's just little things that I've found along the years to save time. The second one we're not going to worry about. What this one does is if you have a word that's already hyphenated, it does not hyphenate again. It will not hyphenate a hyphenated word. So in some cases you may want to delete this out because sometimes it can be a little wonky if you have words that are hyphenated several times, which in my writing sometimes I do that. So I'm not going to really worry about this one, but this one is very important. This particular grep style is set up to prevent runts. Now you may say, what's a runt? A runt is where you have a very short line at the end of a paragraph, okay? Like, for example, let's come in here. I am going to fake this just so you can see. Let me look for a good paragraph. All right, this is a runt. See, Pluto is down, hanging by itself. It's not very long. It's only 6 characters when you count the period. I try to avoid these. I like to have at least 10 characters out, okay? So what our little grep style does is it tells to apply a no break to the last 10 characters of a paragraph. So you're going to prevent runts with this. Okay, and this is a great time-saving tool because you don't have to go through your document and look for runts. It automatically does them and corrects them within this template, which is a great time-saving tool. Okay, all right, so that's enough for the styles. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to assign the first chapter of every paragraph a special paragraph style, okay? And I like to do this because I like to be decorative. I like to do drop caps or, capitalize, set the first 3 words or first 5 words or whatever in all caps, or maybe set it in a special font. So I have a style within the template set up, and it's called first pair drop cap. Okay, so what you can do is go through the first paragraph of every single chapter and assign that first pair drop cap. Now, I'm not going to do it here because you don't want to watch me do that. I will, after I finish this part of this video, I'm going to go through the document. So when we get onto the third stage where we're actually designing the document, we will adjust these settings, and all this will already be done. All right, so one thing to know about the first pair drop cap and how it differs from the chapter text is that we don't have an indent. Now, something to pay attention to, let's kind of go backwards. Let's look at chapter text. In the general font, you'll notice where it says based on, it's not based on any paragraph style whatsoever. Now, if we look at some of these other paragraph styles like chapter text space above, this particular style is based on chapter text. So if I make any changes to the chapter text paragraph style, those changes are going to be reflected in this paragraph style. So if I decide to change the font, everything in this template is going to update based on that font. The chapter text is going to change, first pair is going to change, first pair of drop cap, they're all going to change that font because everything is based on this chapter text, as long as I make the change in the original base master chapter text. Okay, so let's look at that. All right, so I want to change, we're not going to use Warnock Pro for this document. For my books, I actually prefer a font called ITC Esprit. So I'm going to change that And actually, there's a couple of different things I want you to pay attention to as we're making this change. So I am changing in the edit chapter text. Let's go ahead and assign some styles just so we'll see it. All right, this is the first pair. The biggest difference between these two styles, first pair drop cap and first pair drop cap 2, is that the first one only does the first character, whereas the 2 does the 2 characters. So in cases where your paragraph starts with a quotation mark, you want it to be 2. Okay. And the next thing is anytime I have a scene break, I want that chapter to be, that style to be set to first para, because I don't want it to be indented after a scene break. And I will walk you through scene breaks in a little bit. So, all right, so now what we're going to do is, hold on just a second. Okay, so now, this is kind of one of those concepts that's kind of hard to explain, so I hope I do an okay job of it. All these styles are kind of a hierarchy, you could say. Some of them are not, so let's look at chapter title. Chapter title is based on nothing, okay? So if we make a change to chapter title, there's no base style that we need to worry about. Chapter number is based on chapter text, but because the biggest difference is we told it to be a different font, we don't need to worry about it. Chapter text, first para drop cap, and these centered ones. And even block quotes, these are all based on this chapter text font. So if I make a change to the chapter text master style, it's going to reflect in the first para drop cap, in the first para, in any of the styles that are all based on this chapter text, okay? I know that's kind of some people may think that's a little difficult to grasp, but we're going to kind of show you. I'm going to show you kind of what I mean. All right, so let's say we wanted to change the font, the overall font for all the chapter text. We want it to be the ITC Esprit, which I prefer. But I don't change it in chapter text. I only change it in first para. So let's change that to ITC Esprit. Well, I changed it, but it only changed it on first para because that's all I did. Well, we don't want that, okay? We actually want to change it in chapter text. So we're going to do the same thing, ITC Esprit. Now we're going to click on OK, and we're going to watch everything updated to ITC Esprit, because all of these other styles are based on this chapter text. So if you want to make changes to the overall document, the overall font used in the document, you change it in chapter text. Now, if the paragraph style isn't based on chapter text, it's not going to change it. So we knew that chapter titles are not based on chapter text. So it's actually still the original font that we had in the document, which is Garamond. But we'll worry about changing this in the design because we're actually going to use some decorative things instead of these. Okay? All right, so that's important to understand, is making changes in the right master, in the right paragraph style to make it work throughout the document. All right, now that we made that change to IC Esprit, suddenly our italics are gone. And you'll see that these are highlighted pink. Now, it's not going to print pink, so if we toggle to our screen view, our print view, that pink goes away, okay? Now, the reason why these are pink is because this particular font, ITC Esprit, does not have an italic version to it, or it's not called italic, okay? So you're going to find in certain fonts that you use that they do not have what's regularly called italic. Okay, so for this particular font, it's actually called Book Italic, I believe. Yeah, book italic. So we have to change the character style for italic to be book italic instead of just plain italic. Okay, so to do this, we're going to go to character styles, and we're going to edit the italic, and we're going to say the font style. Well, there's no italic for ITC Esprit, so we need to change this to book italic. And lo and behold, it's going to change to the right one all throughout the document. That's something that you really have to pay attention to. Certain fonts are not, certain fonts may call the italic version oblique or book italic or reg italic or regular italic, so you just have to look at that particular font to see what the font family is actually called, what it calls the italic versions of for that particular font. Okay, all right. Now that we have everything, let's do one last thing before we move to the design portion, and that is with scene breaks. Okay, scene breaks, it's always a good habit to have in your manuscript is to use asterisks for your scene breaks. 3 asterisks. Don't try to do 4. Always just use 3, or whatever you use, just make sure it's consistent. Don't use space. Use asterisks. Okay. Now in the final document for that we're going to use for the design, we're not going to have asterisks. We're actually going to have a little decorative element here. But for purposes of formatting, it's best to stick with asterisks until you get to the design portion. So if you work with clients, tell them to always denote scene breaks with asterisks, okay? Now what we're going to do is we have a paragraph style called scene break under miscellaneous. So I am actually going to change all of my asterisks to this scene break. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the find change menu, which is Control F. We are going to tell it to find 3 asterisks followed by the end of paragraph. We want it to keep it the same. So 3 asterisks, end of paragraph. We don't need to find any format because right now it's all formatted as chapter text. So we don't need to worry about the find format. But we want to change the formatting. We don't want a character style applied, but we do want a scene break paragraph style applied. So what it's going to do, we're just going to change this first one first. All right, so I found that. We're going to change it. And you'll notice that there's space before and space below. That's because the scene break, the definition for the scene break has it where there is space above and space below. Okay. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're actually just going to do a change all throughout the document. It's going to find all the scene breaks and apply that scene break character style. Okay. All right, so now our entire document is pretty much set up with styles, okay? So now the next part is in part 3, and that's where we're actually going to make this document look pretty. So stay tuned for the next video.